Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. And yet again, you know that phrase I'm going to use. Can you believe it? It's Friday already. The weeks are just flying by because we're having fun in business, making connections, having lots of conversations, and literally finding out more about each other as we go forward. But the weeks are flying by. Now, welcome to the Newpreneur Cast, my opportunity to bring one of my guests along every single week for us to delve into a conversation or two over a cuppa or two and to find out about some of the topics that we find as first year in business or areas of challenges that we've gone through in the early days as well. Now, before we make a start this morning, I introduce my wonderful guest with me today. She's been part of my journey for the past 7+ years on that train of what I do. But what we discussed is I want you to think about this for a moment or two. Have you ever been in a position when you start off your business and you went, "What am I doing?" Have you ever felt that I shouldn't be in the room? That imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt that I just think, what am I going to do next? And you get that sort of gut feeling, that sort of lacking of confidence that you just want to build confidence and get on with it. That imposter syndrome. You ever been there before? Your first year in business, you're just trying to find the building blocks to move you forward. Now, I'm going to welcome my guest with us today, and she's been helping lots of people with this type of scenario. But it's a great opportunity for us both to discuss this today on the Newpreneur Cast. Can you please welcome with me today and this week the one and only Ev Foster, no relation by the way, Ev Foster of Keller Williams Scotland, the operator principal. Ev, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for the invite, Lee. Good to see you.
It is indeed. We're caught up this week. It's
Yeah.
been bizarre when we thought about how long that you've been part of my business journey in the early days. And that was when I first started in 2017, the back end of 2017, early 2018.
That's right. Yeah. And I was my first, well, not my first business, but the current business or the prequel to this business was March 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And where that time flies by and everything else
I
flies
know.
by.
Absolutely.
So let's get
Absolutely.
let's get stuck right in, right? So we spoke about a topic for today, and I thought it was a really interesting topic, the fear factor. And I
Yeah.
think it was the facing self-doubt in yourself in that first year as a solopreneur. Did you ever feel that way when you first, because we spoke about this in length, but how did you feel when you first started your prequel of business? And did you feel that way?
I think I still feel that way
Really?
sometimes. Yeah. I think but I think what happens when the more experience you have, the easier you are to then kind of deal with that feeling of self-doubt or feeling the fear factor, because you've learned through experience over the years, that it's just a feeling and it's just a thought and it's not actually going to come true, which is what fear is, right? I think in the first year, I had, yeah, really big. I mean, I made the leap from, a job into my own business without much thought, if truth be told, when I look back. But I did it because of my family. I did it because I didn't want to be, driving there the hours I was driving and working the hours I was working. So it was that kind of like, oh well, I'll start my own business because that'll be much easier. Ah, said no one ever at the end of their first year. So yeah, I mean, I think you do have that kind of. I find the word imposter syndrome quite a strange one.
Yeah.
But I know what it means, but I don't. I find it's again, it's coming, it's getting over that and walking into rooms and knowing that you are as every right to be there as much as anybody else, and that again comes with experience. But at the beginning, if you can kind of overcome that, and I'm not a great, fake it till you make it person, but if you can overcome that and walk into a room and deal with the fear, then you're going to have a much better start in your business.
It's interesting when you say about the imposter side of it. A lot of people talk about it, and should I say this? I agree with you. Many people don't know what it is. They talk about it, but they don't actually really know
Yeah,
what it's all about. It's a phrase that we use in business quite regularly, but a
yeah.
lot of people, and I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people out there will just go, "Yeah, I'm part of that," but they don't really understand how it works.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, when you look into what it is, it's really, it's not a thing. It's a very difficult thing to kind of, uh, be in, and I mean, I think for me, it, if you are always truly yourself and you are your authentic, unapologetic self, you're never going to be an imposter because you're always you. So you
Yeah.
do you in whatever scenario you find yourself in. Now,
Mm,
whether that is, you'll, people will say, oh, I can take him anywhere or I can take her anywhere, because you just make friends, you just have a conversation with
mm,
anybody at whatever function, event, level, for want of a better word, anybody's at.
yeah.
So if you just always do you and be you, how can you be an imposter?
Aye. That's true. And I think as well, what you mentioned before was that what I've always got that little fear and self-doubt that's lying in there of thinking, am I doing the right thing? And it's called that gut reaction, isn't it? We're reacting to a gut when it's feeling a bit uncomfortable. It's actually the comfortable way to go. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, if if you've had that feeling in your gut, that's okay. The
Mm,
difference is having a little bit of nerves is okay. To be nervous is
mm,
okay. You ask anybody who, some of your greatest speakers, you see them on stage and you think, oh my God, how do they do that? How with no, they are absolutely
yeah.
uh, polite expression themselves, before they go on, and but they have coping mechanisms. So I think that's what it's all about.
Mm,
It's about learning how to kind of cope with that kind of feeling. But again, it's coming back to people I mean, don't get me wrong, some people in social situations and I do have that nervous feeling going in. It's not something I necessarily have had, from a young age. My mum had that. I can remember, and this is something that I think I've always remembered. My mum said to me once, you just don't know what it's like. And I said, well, tell me what I don't know what it's like. She said, when you walk in a room, you assume that everybody's going to like you. She said, when I walk in a room, I assume everybody's not going to like me.
well, okay.
And I thought, gosh, what an awful feeling to have. What
Mm,
and my mum wasn't a horrible person, she was a lovely person, but that was the way she kind of had her life. And that's, I think, for some people it's that side of it. But again, if you are you and you're a good person and you're good to people,
yeah.
then you can walk in any room.
Yeah. No, and I believe it or not, I've felt the same way when I've walked into a room before. And I remember my first ever experience, I've talked about it a few times, walking to a sea of people and thinking, okay, I'm a fairly confident person, but there's a little bit of thinking, what am I doing here? And what do I want to do with it? And you feel this wealth of, a wave of overwhelmment that you just think, and you get that gut and you feel a bit sweaty and you go, oh, okay then. So you get yourself to one side and try and pull yourself together and go, okay, right now, just start talking to people who I don't know.
Yeah.
People have said to me, how do you do that? I says, I just want to just talk to people and say hello to them. I'm the type of person who'll say hello to people on the street, and just say, good morning, good afternoon, how are you doing? You well? And I think that's something that's always been pushed into me. But it's strange when you hear about your mum there, that she had that sort of perception ingrained into here, the mindset for her.
And I think that had come from her mother, and that's where, I
Ah,
think these kind of beliefs that we have,
mm,
can be actually, I mean, it's doubting ourselves, and it is kind of, lack of self-belief, but a lot of them do come from the way you were brought up, or the
yeah,
the situations that you were in when you were small. I had a dad who was like, who would walk into a room and everybody would know who he was, and his energy was good. And then I had a mum who was the opposite. But my dad's energy, took her along with him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my sister and I are very different. I'm like my dad, and she's like my mum.
Mhm.
So you again, we have the same kind of upbringing, but with different beliefs getting put in our heads.
Yeah.
But I think but again, you only know these things if you then start to kind of look at them. What,
Yeah.
again, going back to the fear thing, am I fearless? No, I'm not fearless, but I know how to overcome
Mhm.
things that make me fearful.
But you would have you would. We've all had that fear. I came out of a corporate industry, like you came out of the job
Yeah.
as well. Right? I came out of the corporate industry and decided to go, okay, I'm going to work for myself. And then there's that little bit of fear, thinking, what are you doing? And you're not too sure how it's going to look for 6 months down the line. You're just starting from day one. You can only, as my dad always said, and you hear this from many people, you can only affect what's happening to you now. You can't do anything with the future. You can't do anything with the past. You can only affect of actually what you're doing in the here and now in front of you. Um, so when you decided to step out on your own, how did you overcome your fear?
Yeah. Well, the flippant answer would be lots of red wine and lots of gin and tonic.
I knew that was going to come in
Um,
on that
yeah,
one.
I mean, that was the kind of numbing effect, and then just deal with it again the next day. But the truth is, I I think, particularly during that first year, it was really, really tough because I had, I went out on my own, set up my own agency, got listings, got houses to sell, but there's that 6 month lag between, selling a house, i.e., getting it under offer till you get paid. And you've probably heard me say the story about the 4 pence in my bank account and no petrol in my car, and that was
Mhm.
only 6 months after I started, and that was a pivotal weekend for me because I thought that's it. I just can't do this. I was a single mum, rent to pay, 4 kids to feed. And the easiest thing actually at that point would have been to say, do you know what, I'm just going to go and get a job. I'm just going to get the salary that I want, the company car, do all that. But there was something inside of me. And I think there's some people call it a knowing. Some people, it's, and you're probably the same, Lee, because I'm sure there's many times when you've gone, do you know what, this is just too hard and I don't know what's happening. And you're right, you can only control right here and now. I mean, what we
Mhm.
said 10 minutes ago, we can't change that, and
No,
we're live. So we
that
can't
was
change what we said. We can't, it's now we're in here 14 minutes and we can only talk about 11:14. That's it. And I think and I've done a lot of, you know, the word personal journey, it's used quite a lot, but I've done a lot of kind of research into how people tick. How do I tick? What makes me tick? How do I overcome fear? Because at the end of the day, fear and faith are the same thing.
Mhm.
It's the unknown, right? So you can choose to live your life in fear, or you can choose to live it in faith. And I made a decision, and I'm not talking about religious faith, I'm talking about just faith in the good's going to happen. And I made a conscious decision, and I can remember it was that weekend, the 4 pence and the no petrol, and I thought, no, I'm choosing to believe and live in faith that this is all going to work out, and I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to, and so from that weekend, which was October 2018, I've always lived in faith. Do I
Mhm.
do I wobble? Yes, of course I do. And I still think, what the devil am I doing? And what, what, but it's again, it's going down the path of, no, believing and a knowing as well.
It's embracing the thought that you had at the beginning, just keeping it there with
Mm.
you all the time. Don't lose it. I mean, there's always parts. I mean, I agree with you. Of that, you get to a point where you're thinking, "What am I doing?" And it would be easy to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, listen, have you got a job going? Here's my qualifications," or touching base with people that we've known from the past or part of our circle and go, "Listen, I'm stepping back into a full time job here now. Is there anything you can offer for me? Is there anything in this level or this, that, the other?" And you could just switch straight away. But you get to a certain point that you just think, no, I have got the faith in what I'm doing. I believe in what I'm doing.
Mhm.
and this is what's going to happen as I push forward onto it. Um, and I guess that comes to confidence, really,
I think
building
it's
confidence in yourself and others.
Well, I think it's confidence, and I think it's also a something within you that you just know that you can do this. I
Mhm.
mean, I had before I came back into state agency, I had a business that I absolutely loved. It was a gym business. It was a franchise
For
business.
that.
I just loved my members, loved everybody, but it didn't serve me financially because during the time of that business, I got divorced.
Mm,
So my business went from, shall we say, not a hobby because I worked blinking hard, but it didn't have to serve me financially. But
mm,
then, I got divorced and it had to. So I had to walk away from that business. And I remember saying to somebody, oh, that business failed, and they said it didn't. You changed lots of life. It didn't fail. It failed you financially, but you made the right decision and you walked away. So sometimes we have to be strong enough to say no, this isn't working, as well
mm.
as keeping pushing on, because if you're in somewhere and you just you know that it's not going to, again, it's down to that knowing, isn't it? I knew that was never going to be enough to serve me financially. Everybody else was fine. Everybody else's wages were paid. Everything was, but I wasn't getting paid. I'm sure many small business owners will understand that time of the month when it's the 28th of the month and you're like, oh my God, there's like, oh no, I've got this. How did the 28th come around so quickly? But everybody else gets paid before we do. And then, you know that, yeah. So I think being confident and is also being confident enough to know when to walk away from something as well as to continue and push forward with it.
Oh, that's a really good one, Evelyn. I don't think there's many people out there actually, and I've had multiple conversations with people about this, is going the time to say no, and not just to stop, but just to adapt and reposition yourself. Some people leave it too late, and they have fear and thinking, "Oh, should I really do that?" Because it has the wrong perception out there. So, well, if you think it's the right thing to do, you've got to do something to change the wheel, which is what you did when you had that 4 pence and no fuel and this, that, and the other in the car, and you're thinking,
Mhm.
"I've got to do something. Something has to change. I can't just keep doing what I'm doing because it's not getting the result that I want from it." Um, I think there's so many people out there who are frightened to change the direction, or just I think the word I use, reposition or readapt yourself. Um,
Yeah, or reinvent or whatever, word it is. I mean, I think, for me, there was two things going on in my life. I was getting divorced and I was losing a business. So it was a complete reinvention. And it was a time of, I mean, real deep soul searching. When you leave a marriage, you don't do it, particularly when there's no fault involved. It's literally, something has just come to an end, and there's kids involved. It's a difficult decision, but when you do it and so it's okay to go, do you know what, okay, my marriage failed, but I'm succeeding in life, as are my children and as is my ex-partner. So the word of a marriage failing, maybe it's the best thing that you're not together, and actually that's then success. So it's the
yeah,
same in business,
yeah,
and I think you talk about reinvention and growth, and I've got a great love of butterflies. And if you look at a butterfly's story, that is what a lot of people go through. But obviously everybody knows about the caterpillar, everybody
yeah.
knows about the cocoon, the pupae, and then the
Mm,
butterfly comes out of it. What people don't know is that in that chrysalis, the caterpillar actually goes into soup, like it goes into liquid. It liquefies itself, right? So it completely disappears to liquid, and then it comes out the chrysalis and it still doesn't know if it's going to be a butterfly because it's still wet, right? The wings are still wet.
mm,
So,
mm,
if you, and then only, so out of 100 kind of caterpillar eggs, or butterfly eggs, there's only maybe one or two actually survive to be a
Wow.
butterfly. So if you look at that theory, and it's not a theory, it's fact, it's life, and you
Hmm.
look upon it from people who have come out of relationships or come out of a business or changing their life,
Hmm.
they're caterpillar going into that cocoon, liquefying themselves, doing the whole change, doing the whole growth, coming out and going, I actually still don't know if I'm going to make this, but I'm going to try. I am going to try, and I'm going to try and fly. And
Mm.
then the butterfly comes out. And
Yeah.
to me, that is the best analogy of success in business and a journey.
Love
And
that.
the difference between us as humans is that we can sometimes we go through the caterpillar butterfly journey quite a few times in our lives.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because you've got to then look upon that as a joy that we get the chance to do that. We get the chance to reinvent ourselves or reinvent a business or change what the situation we're in. We actually get to do that as humans.
Yeah. I think I knew about that, but listen to the way you just explained it from beginning right the way through. We all go through that sort of stage in our lives of things that happen to us. And I can relate to that because I mean, I went through a similar sort of thing many, many moons ago, but it was sort of like one road or the other. The other road was not the road you want to take. And it was somebody that came along and did sort of intervention and says, go this road instead. It was my sister, and completely changed the direction for me. And it just meant you just redeveloping, recreating yourself, just taking time for you. That's again, it's taking that time for yourself. I think is really
Yeah.
important, but just embrace it and go with it and then see where it takes you to, because there's people out there who can help you with that. I mean, unfortunately, the butterfly's on their own inside the cocoon. It's just working with what it's got the magic and everything else that's happening there that's going to take them out of that. Love that. The butterfly effect. So yeah, there's different ways of thinking of the butterfly effect on that one.
Yeah.
Um, but the mindset is really important, and fueling the action that happens is something that I mentioned in one of the posts I was talking about as well. I like that word, fueling the action that you're looking to take and the
Mhm.
mindset. But you've been helping loads of people with going, not just yourself going through that, Evelyn, those early days, but you've actually been helping loads of other people who are now stepping out to be estate agents and everything else. They are probably going, well, definitely are going through the same stage of that first year of going, oh, what have I
Yep.
done? Yeah, there's loads of people like that, isn't there, really? So
Yep.
how are you helping people like who are in your situation, but you're many years down the line? Just mean that the right way, by the way, in business, by the
Thank
way.
you.
It's all right, just got to rectify that. But then for those going through that, they're letting them tap into your experience in addressing that.
I mean, mindset is a gosh. There's so many mindset gurus out there, isn't there? And I say that almost flippantly because at the end of the day, what is mindset? It's setting your mind. Okay, so it's setting your mind to do something and fueling an action. So for me, I have people who will go, oh, this isn't working and blah, 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 blah. And I will literally say, what actions have you taken? And, you know, most of the time when somebody's not having success is because they haven't taken the actions, because
Mm,
they've sat back and waited for it to happen, thinking that, it's all just going to happen. No, it doesn't. And there's a phrase that I use frequently, and it probably sums it up, because people will sit back and go, well, I can't do this because of X, and I can't do this because of Y. No, you can do it. You're choosing not to do it, and you're being a little bit of a victim right now. So stand up and go, I'm going to own this. And the phrase that I love is that perfect, no, so hold on, perfect, wait a minute, let me get this right. Imperfect action will beat perfect inaction every time.
love that.
So
Yeah.
we all have people, and a lot of my guys that come on, well, I need to, I want to get my business card the right font, and I want to get this the right thing, and we supply all that, by the way, so they don't need to do any of that, and I'll literally go, how many calls have you made? How many people have you spoken to? You mentioned earlier, conversations, connections. How many people have you put in your database? How many people have you reached out on social media? Oh, well, no, I haven't done that because, right? Now, I mean, I don't say it quite like that to people, obviously, but the difference sometimes is, and I go back to when I started, right? So I left a job, earning good money, but traveling 1,500 miles a week, not seeing my kids, to setting up one business, to having them, I had to get listings. I had a need that was in me so deep that I would have done, not done anything, but I took all the actions that I needed to do to make sure that I could pay my rent. So, people talk about your big why and your purpose. My purpose is simply that.
Evelyn, 2 seconds. I think we're losing a bit of voice. We can't hear you that well. I think the connection's breaking down ever so slightly on that one, I think. So it's a shame we're just losing your voice on there. Yeah, it's broken itself down, I think. Sorry, everybody. I think we just got a bit of a technical issue. That's all that's happened on that one. So it's coming like sort of bit sketchy. See if we get that back on again in 2 seconds. Yeah, I think it's gone. Ev, sorry. That was going at a right good stage there, everybody, as well, I think, as well. Yeah, it's just a break of sort of comms. Just it sort of like sounds like you're in the water now all of a sudden. We'll be back again in a few minutes, everybody. Just bear with us. We're just going to end the stream just now, if that's all right. I'm just going to check in with Ev, and we'll be back in about 2 seconds, if that's okay. Thanks so much, everybody.